And we're back with the Pontus campaign. Last time we finished off Atropatkan by just buffering them away from us so we can ignore them for the time being. We also did a very successful night attack against Kartli up in the north just to secure our borders and create a liberated state there. We moved on to the next set of bonus objectives and realised we need to attack both Bosphorus and one day the Ptolemaic Empire. To prepare for these moves, we subjugated Ardan to secure more border, and we occupied Colchis, so now we're ready to move on to attack Bosphorus itself. We're ready to make our expedition and get started with it, but we do need to keep in mind that Colchis might actually come back to try and take revenge for our conquering of their homeland. They've got roughly half an army out there in our allies' territory. They were fighting with our ally, you may remember, which is why it was so easy to conquer them. So because of that, I'm going to leave Ariobarzanes behind, just in case they come back, and then send everything else up against Phanagoria, our first target. They've got two regions up here. They're not allied to anyone anymore. They were allied to Colchis, but conveniently broke it right at the end, and we're not going to call any of our allies into this conflict since they're not going to be of any help. We were actually still on the terms of a defensive alliance with them that I recently broke, so this attack does count as a dishonour. We're less trustworthy now, so that'll make it harder for us to get deals with other factions, but we don't really need to right now, so maybe that's okay. All we need to do then is go and attack their first settlement. They've got an army up there, so we'll see what they do with that. They actually asked us for a peace treaty right after the war started, so that's a really good sign. It means we're almost certainly going to win because the AI knows what you have, essentially. So this proves that its armies are inferior to mine, even though I haven't sent that many troops over. They think they're definitely going to lose, so looks like things are going to go well for us in this conflict. And they actually removed their army that was defending their first region there, so that's going to make my life a bit easier. We saw that Colchis seemed to have attacked our ally settlement again. Our allies' troops have just run off somewhere, so their forces are now even weaker than they were before, and it's getting to the point when we don't need to leave an army behind to defend against them. They probably won't be able to do anything, especially because they're taking attrition since they don't have any regions. So we'll just ignore them, and Ariobarzanes can come and help with our offensive. So right now we just go and attack this settlement. Since there's no army inside anymore, this won't be a problem. Even my little reinforcement stack can do it on its own. But we might as well move in with Rhodates as well, just to not get any losses here, since he's in movement range. So there we go, that's one of the two Phanagoria settlements we need taken super easily, and one of the three Bosphorian settlements we'll need to complete our little mission here. So Phanagoria react to this by running away, in fact running all the way through their own territory, out the other side and off somewhere else, so not quite sure what they're actually doing there. Now we learn that our ally over here to the east has been defeated by Colchis. They actually took that settlement, so they are now going to avoid getting attrition, and they might build back up. That's pretty annoying. So now Ariobarzanes is going to have to quest back out there to once again go and conquer these guys out on the steppe and just make sure they don't cause any trouble. So that'll be his new mission. We don't really need him on the front lines anyway. Our frontline forces are just going to keep going. Since Phanagoria have very kindly cleared out the roads, we can start walking up towards their next settlement. I learned though that they do have a half-dead army just to the north. Maybe they've been fighting with the Scythians up there, I'm not quite sure. They don't appear to be at war with them, but it's possible it happened in the past and the AI has glitched out and never brought its troops back to replenish or something like that. But anyway, we're just going to keep walking up, and I'm going to stay out of reinforcement range of their settlement for this turn, so they can't make any sort of big counterattack, and next turn we'll be able to go and probably finish them off by the looks of things. Colchis don't want a peace treaty with me. In fact, they ask me for money for peace, which is certainly not acceptable, so we're going to have to take them out. Now Phanagoria actually pull a pretty good move here. Their navy comes around to attack that place I just took, and because we have basically no garrison, looks like they'll be able to do it. I was just like, well, fair play to you. I probably should have paid attention to that navy and left our reinforcements behind. But in a very unlikely twist, we win the auto-resolve. I've never seen an auto-resolve win with the balance bar so far in the enemy's favour. I think it's probably because it was a land battle that was only involving naval units from the enemy's side, so that probably messes up the auto-resolve calculations in some way. So that's pretty lucky. That will slightly accelerate the downfall of Phanagoria, since I don't have to go back and retake that region again to get all of their territory. We're going to keep going against Colchis here, and we can see that Ardhan, our very loyal subjugated faction, are actually moving out themselves to attack them. So that's good of them. They are keeping up their end of the deal. So anyway, we can see that Phanagoria army, the one that's half dead, is actually in reinforcement range of that settlement. So making an attack here is slightly harder than it looks, but not really. I can use Mithridates on night attack mode to get rid of them, of course. That means I can't use my own reinforcements, but I wanted to come down and give this battle a go anyway, just to have another attempt at using pikes for a settlement assault and see if we can make it go a little bit better than it did last time for educational purposes. This battle actually went completely differently to our previous attempt at a settlement assault because the enemy charged out right at the start. I should have known this would happen. It's because I have the Lithbalos things, the catapults, and the enemy doesn't like sitting while it's outranged. I think it's hard scripted to go into an attack AI even if it is defending when it's outranged like this. So as you can see, a bit of trouble with our archers as they charge out with their cav to hit them. I'm going to have to get Mithridates to go and sort that out with support from a few pikes there. And the rest of the line will quickly form up, ready for a little mini field battle basically. I'll make a nice wall of pikes in front of our army and put the archers behind and just try and let the enemy walk onto the front of them. Here they come, and it didn't really go ideally. You can see they just kind of walk up really casually and go through the pike wall, so a lot of them managed to get our guys to a regular melee. That's unfortunate, but other bits of that formation will at least be exposed to pike attack and will slowly grind them down. Here on the left is a bit dodgy as well, because I had this one unit that was split off from the line to try and support our archers over here. Right now they're fighting these mob units, so that's going to be pretty easy for them at the very least. But it did mean that there was a gap in the line, and the AI was pretty good about actually using this. You can see they're just going to walk right through it with a couple of units here. So now our archers behind the line will be exposed, and they can of course rear attack our pike phalanxes if they really want. It's going to be up to our ranged units to try and defeat those guys before they do too much damage. On the other end of the line, they were about to outflank us, but I rear attacked them with some Galatians, and 2 units turned around to fight these Galatians, so that was good. While the fight for our melee troops may not be the best there, I can now use the nearby archers to shoot into the backs of those hoplite phalanxes. And that's going to do absolutely loads of damage, especially against these levies here because they don't have armor. So these arrows from the back do maximum damage. They're going to go right down. The other units of hoplites that were breaking through were pretty kind to me. They didn't really want to go out of phalanx, and they didn't want to attack the back of my pikes either, so they were very vulnerable to being hit with arrows as well, and we're just going to skirmish around and play with them. The enemy's archers are taken out by our cavalry. We also captured the town, and pretty much at this point the battle is going to be over. We just have every advantage. It was an interesting little event though. I came in for a rear attack with some more Galatians, and the enemy turned their front line phalanxes around to receive it. That meant of course they were then being rear attacked by my phalanxes. That for some reason didn't do all that much damage. I think the pike phalanxes attack power isn't all that much because I haven't given them an explicit attack order, so they're not really pushing into their targets in front of them. Anyway, eventually I get Mithridates to just form up in wedge formation and start smashing the backs of these hoplite phalanx blocks, and that very easily ends the battle. Once I hit one there, it chain mounts everything. Decisive victory. We don't need to continue since that was a settlement assault. Really, that went much better than Mithridates' previous attempt, so that's good to see. We lost virtually nothing, just like we did with Ariobarzanes last time. A very perfect battle, really, and now we'll be able to take that settlement, and that's going to be the final settlement for Phanagoria. They still have their army out there since we night attacked, but now it's going to be even weaker than it already was, and pretty much their faction is doomed at this point, and we're now 2/3 of the way to taking all of Bosphorus. Our next target then will have to be the Scythians, the horse archer specialists, so that could be a tiny bit interesting given our army compositions right now. You might notice if you're looking very closely that this is now after the power and politics update, or whatever it was called, the one that added this thing into the game. So I just needed to come and take a look at the other political parties in the Mithridatic Kingdom to see if they were going to cause any trouble, and they actually might do, because a couple of these groups are disloyal to us because they hate Easterners despite awkwardly being Easterners themselves. themselves in a strange twist. I think this is probably a twist that's quite unique to Pontus. So we've got groups that are more on the Hellenic side of things that hate the fact that we are partially an Eastern faction, and that seems to make them disloyal because now they hate our own faction. So it's a bit confusing. I'm not quite sure what's going on or what the consequences are going to be, but I'm going to pull the same tactic I always pull for Room 2 politics. That is to ignore it until something explicitly happens, and we'll deal with it then. We'll deal with a rebellion if it happens, otherwise we'll just do nothing. The other thing to consider is banditry, this new bar under public order, which I'm guessing is somewhat related to it. It seems to be based on the size of your empire. Once it gets bigger, some bandits will start attacking your trade routes or something like that. Most of our places don't have any. Some of our cores had a bit of banditry, and it didn't necessarily say that it does anything. I think it reduced food exports by 1 or something like that, but I'm not using the food export mode, so it might actually be doing nothing at all. So once again, we will pull out the tactical ignore, but here was a problem that I couldn't ignore. They've upgraded the skill tree system, so you can actually see where your upgrades are going to go along the path, which is an absolutely vital upgrade, which they finally threw in there 5 years later. But it seems that the transfer to this new system has actually wiped out all the old skills, so all the guys I've leveled up now don't have any of their skills by the looks of things. That's pretty annoying. That means all my level 5 and 6 generals there are as good as level 1 generals, and perhaps even worse, because it's harder for them to level up and actually get some skills. So that's going to be a nice handicap going forwards. Now, Ardan finished off Colchis for us, didn't get there in time to fight myself, although Ariobarzanes did reinforce the battle just to make it a tiny bit better for our loyal subjugated satrapy, and hopefully they'll remain loyal to us now so that that border can be secure. Ariobarzanes is going to move north now, since we can see there are Scythian armies standing on our border, and since we're about to declare war on them, we need to be ready for this. I noticed though that the Scythians can only enter our territory through this one bridge in the territory just taken by Ardan, so it's actually going to be pretty easy to defend this frontier. We can just put both of our armies near that bridge, and with any luck that will dissuade the enemy from attacking us. As for our offensive strategy, I've put Mithridates into this little fleet that I've built with a supply ship in it so it can stay at sea for a bit, and now we'll just swing round to go and attack the last bit of Bosphorus. The Scythians don't have anything there because they're all off doing other things, so should be a nice little attack there. I noticed that somehow Colchis still have some units alive here, which I was surprised by. I thought they were dead, but they just won't go down. But surely they can't do anything against me at this point, so we're not going to react. We'll just leave that army down there. Hopefully it will die on its own at some point. So now I'm just going to keep setting up this frontline defense against any possible Scythian attacks, and you can see that Ardan have also fortified an army here. It seems they intend to help me defend this border. There are some Phanagorian survivors there as well, but we can ignore them. So now it's time to get our war with the Scythians started. I'm not going to call any allies in, and neither can they at this point. So just a straight war between us effectively, although all my satrapies will be technically obliged to help. You can see here I wasn't able to make a port assault, which is what I planned to do, because I thought that might be fun. Try and land our ships inside their settlement and then take it from the inside. Wasn't allowed to do that for whatever reason, so instead we're going to do this the normal way. We'll just throw Mithridates out onto land and he can make a land assault. Balance bar's not looking very good. The enemy have an almost full stack garrison, tons of archers, a nice army for defending the interior of a settlement. I'm going to start putting some siege equipment together to make this easier, and we do have some time to keep them under siege because we know the Scythian forces are so far away. It's going to take them many turns to get back. During the many turn wait to build the equipment, this is the most important thing that happened. The Seleucids broke their trade agreement with us. That was a mutually detrimental thing to do, so it does suggest they're planning something hostile against us there. We're going to have to be on our toes, because if they do something, we can't react in any way at this point. So now we can see the Scythians are starting to move back. They didn't invade across our border to the east. They want to come back and try and break this siege. And I've actually still got another turn before they'll be in range to attack Mithridates, so I could make even more siege equipment. But I realise there's no point. We come back to the siege and the balance bar has switched because ladders, for whatever reason, as I think I've mentioned before, have a gigantic presence on the balance bar. But since I only have 4 units that are actually able to properly use ladders, and now I've built 6 ladders, there's no point continuing to build up for the siege. We'll just go in and make this attack right away and make use of our catapults. Our priority will be to bring down the nearby enemy towers here and perhaps open up some breaches in the wall using these things. And the wall is going to be much weaker than the previous city we tried to assault because it's barbarian style, so we have few towers, they're not as good, and the walls are smaller and easier to bring down. So all we need to do is sit here for a bit and try to take down that tower. We are going to be suffering though, because these things are extremely inaccurate by the looks of things, and using the flaming shot, while it increases their damages against buildings, also makes them less accurate. So I don't know if that was a very good trade-off in the end. I thought what I could try is moving the artillery forwards to be a bit closer to that tower, just about staying out of its range, to get better accuracy, but I ended up walking into the range of the enemy's archers, and I realised that it must be Attila where they introduced the ability to see the range of enemy units. So by not walking into the red area, I was only not walking into the tower's range, whereas I thought I would be safe from the range of everything. So now we need to slowly turn these things around and get them back. I'm doing the same thing with my ladders as well, but I've already lost one to the enemy's fire arrows, and we're also going to be subject to the little phenomena where your archers can fire further than their range says they can if they're targeting a unit. So I actually go back much further away than I was right at the beginning, and they're still shooting me, so this proved to be pretty annoying. Ended up actually losing another artillery piece to these fire arrows, so I just moved further and further back to try and guarantee safety. Anyway, long story short, from a more distant position, I eventually did set that tower on fire using our flaming shot, and the fire will then destroy it. Nicely, when it gets destroyed, there are some physics effects that just randomly kill nearby guys, so that's good, killing a lot of archers there. This will make our future assault that little bit easier, but more archers are quickly taking their place on the wall. What we're going to want to do is open up a part of the wall if we can. Going to try and use all the rest of my ammo to break down the wall so that my pikes can go in without using ladders for starters, and because breaking down the wall kills enemy units when they stand on them, the AI not especially good at avoiding losing units like this. You can just move them away to get rid of this problem, but the weird physics Shogun 2e stuff is still going on in Rome too, so you can kill almost entire units by just attacking pieces of the wall, so we might as well do that. I'll do the same thing to this next piece of wall along, since I just about had enough ammo to open up a second breach and make our pike attack nice and safe. There goes another unit of defenders there, and the unit next to them is also a bit damaged and demoralized by this spectacle. So with that sorted, it is now time to make an attack. The enemy's defending units are already on the verge of routing, as we can see, so it's going to be a nice easy initial assault. I've also put a few units in distraction positions in a different part of the map to see if the enemy would defend that part of the wall against an attack I wasn't intending to make. I don't think they did, so that was actually a failed attempt. Not that we especially need those units right here, since we can only attack with a few units at a time. I'm going to stubbornly use my ladders anyway, even though I don't need them anymore, just to jump on top of that enemy spear unit with my Galatians and bring them down. And while my pikes advance, I'm using my archers to try and defeat the enemy's archers, who are going to be the main threat to our pikes as we get into position. We had more archers than them, so effectively we'll be able to win that fight without too much thought. And in the end, I can hit them with my melee troops since they didn't run away as my attack came through the breach, so that was good. We are now going to be in range of the enemy's towers though, and in these siege melees, it's always the towers that do the majority of the work, so we need to pay special attention to them. My archers are going to be quite closely following the attack because they are a hard counter to horse archers, who are themselves a pretty good counter to pikes. So we need to use them to bring down any horse archers we encounter so that they can't just keep skirmishing away from our infantry. And that's going to be easy enough because we have so many archers compared to their horse archer numbers. We're going to have a big ranged advantage. So we advance forward a bit more, almost actually get some of those horse archers into a melee with my Galatians. Not quite, unfortunately, so now they can shoot us at point blank range. Annoying, but at least they're standing there. Our archers can keep doing the work against them. They've also got some foot archers nearby who we need to deal with as well, but they're also going to be weak against our skirmishing fire. I'm having lots of problems with the pikes in this battle. In fact, I think these 2 pike units got permanently stuck not in phalanx mode, possibly because of some sort of pathfinding thing. When they came up the wall, it left a man behind or something like that. So now they can't use their pike phalanx, and our archers are having a weird time as well. Some of them started climbing up the ladders to get closer to their targets. That was a bit annoying since it was just stopping them from firing. I also made a nice mistake here. I put these pikes to block this street so my main attack couldn't be rear attacked, but I'm actually too close to the enemy's centre and there are more horse archers hitting me, so for the second time in this battle I'm being screwed over by not remembering that you can't see the range of enemy units, and that standing in an area that doesn't have red on it doesn't mean you're safe. Eventually I'll notice that and move away, but my stubborn insistence on not using projectile trails meant I didn't notice it for quite a long time. Now the enemy eventually come over to attack these pikes who won't go into phalanx formation, so they're just going to have to do their best in regular formation. The Galatians who were leading the attack are now capturing that tower, which is much more important than actually fighting these infantry, so we're just going to leave them to do that. We've actually just finished taking it by the looks of things, and once the tower was on our side, it's going to be really helpful because you get both the towers on either side of the gatehouse and they can fire pretty far, so these archers here are going to be accelerated in their demise by that tower fire, and other shots can be flung all the way towards the victory point where all the rest of the enemy's army is sitting, so we can start killing horse archers and the enemy's defending infantry. That's especially good. It will force some of them to come outside, as you can see, to try and fight us, so now our Galatians will have a nice easy time against these tribes people. These guys have no shield, so they're just going right down to our heavy infantry. A bit more of a struggle over here since our pikes can't fight very effectively in melee without their pikes, but they're doing their best and we will be able to surround the enemy. Meanwhile, we can use our archers to kill everything that stayed on the capture point. Their horse archers will be easily killed by this archery attack. That will free up some more space for us to move the rest of our infantry in to help. Now the enemy somehow actually decapped the tower here. They weren't standing on the capture point, and I was trying to investigate what it was that was capturing it. I thought maybe there was something in the gatehouse that was doing it, but apparently not. There are various glitches in this and Attila where things like dead horses and stuff will just capture points, or maybe the circle that represents where you have to be to capture it actually just doesn't represent the area and those units next to it are counting as being on the capture point. Whatever the case, it didn't matter too much because the enemy started to chain rout. All of their horse archers were killed by my archers, as I said, and as I moved in my infantry to come and take that victory point and rear attack the enemy's main blob, they all just gave up. Probably the right idea. Also made a very pointless attack on another tower in the corner of the map to try and distract the enemy, but they didn't take the bait. Anyway, the fight is over now, a decisive victory that went quite cleanly in the end, just like all of our assault across Bosphorus. Overall, this little mission proved to be very easy, and with any luck we'll only be moving on to even higher heights from here. We'll see what happens next time.